Welcome to Spaghetti Horror. I'm Keith Gotti.
And I'm Erica Parlavecchio.
Today's episode, we're doing a fun one. We're comparing an original to a remake. Can you take a guess which one it is? Say it.
Texas Chainsaw
Massacre. We're going to compare the 1970, what year was it? 1974 original, which is the only original, to the Jessica Biel 2003 remake. Thank God she knows these years.
Yeah. We are not doing the Jordana Brewster.
No, none of that. Yeah, because that's like an origin of a blah, blah, blah. It sucks.
But, so we chose these two, I think, the 2003 one, like you just said. The Jordana Brewster one felt more like an origin story, which I didn't care for. And these two movies actually felt, I think they were supposed to be really, really similar. And I think in a lot of ways
much more similar than I remembered upon rewatching it, too, which I kind of liked. So, I guess let's go back to the original. We can discuss that a little bit and talk about, give a little briefing and some things we liked and disliked and kind of the synopsis of it. And if you want to start with it. You can...
Sure. So, we'll give you a quick synopsis, I guess, if you've not seen it. So, basically, it's just a group of people that some of them are dating, some of them are not.
Yeah.
A brother is part of it, and they're just on a drive, essentially, and with no clear destination.
Yeah, we're not quite sure where they're going.
Yeah, and I forgot that they didn't actually tell you where they were going, but they're just kind of on a drive, and they come across a hitchhiker.
Oh, for the record, spoiler alert.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, and we might say spoiler alert before we say a spoiler, even though it's going to say spoiler alert, but bear with us.
Yeah, so they're just on a drive. They come across a very bizarre, wary hitchhiker. And
why anybody would pick this guy up is beyond me.
Well, it's the 70s, you know?
I know.
People did that back then.
Free spirit, man, you know?
People picked up hitchhikers back then. And after they meet him, we don't have to do the whole story, but basically chaos ensues after they come across this guy.
I mean, he straight up cuts Franklin in like a deep
Well, he cuts himself first.
That's true. It cuts himself, cuts Franklin, burns that picture, and they talk about the slaughterhouse, which actually, fun little tidbit in there. That hitchhiker talks about how making head cheese, which is a nasty luncheon meat, but that was actually going to be one of the working titles for Texas Chainsaw Massacre was head cheese. Would you have watched that movie? I wouldn't have.
No.
Absolutely not.
Definitely wouldn't have tuned in for that one. But I liked the hitchhiker. I thought it was an interesting way to get them to where they were going.
Yeah.
Because that's all. I mean, he comes back at the very end of the movie, but that's kind of all he was.
Yeah,
it was just an avenue to get them towards where they were headed.
Yeah. And, so basically, I guess what kind of happens, they ran out of gas, right?
Well, I don't think they
go to the
run
gas
out of
station.
Gas. Yeah, they end up at a gas station, which...
Well, remember, they hear that generator, and they wanted to barter for gas from the generator.
That was after. So they end up at the gas station, and you don't...
She's more fresh when watching this one.
I watched it the other day.
Yeah.
You don't know yet at that moment, but the guy who runs the gas station is the leader of this family that Leatherface is part of. And he's basically like, yeah, we have no gas here, and... Something that I caught on my rewatch that I didn't remember the first time I watched it. So Franklin says to him, "Oh, do you know?" Franklin's the wheelchair-bound brother of one of the characters, and he says, "Oh,
Jerry!" That guy. Oh God.
He says, "Oh, you know how to get to the old Franklin place?" And I'm like, I thought his name was Franklin. Is it Franklin? Are they calling him Franklin because that's his last name?
Right.
Who knows?
Is it listed on IMDb?
It's just Franklin.
Just Franklin.
And so he says, "Oh, do you know how to get to the old Franklin place?" Like I think he says it's his grandfather's.
Yeah. And
I'm like, well, why would you ask him how to get there because then you learn once they get there that he knows everything about it.
And are they going to some watering hole or something? Because they're like we said, we don't know where they're going, but they end up at a creepy gas station with a creepy hitchhiker, and then they find this house where they hear a generator, and they go inside. And what's the guy? Who gets hit? Is he the first victim?
Yeah.
First victim. Again, spoiler alert. I know my brother hates when I say that when we already know there's spoilers. But anyway, so he gets hit with that sledgehammer.
Yeah.
And then he gets dragged into that room, and then Leatherface slams that door shut, and that kind of set the tone right there.
I think that's one of the best. It's one of my favorite moments of the movie, other than the character Pam getting put on the meat hook.
Yeah, she thinks it was neck victim, right?
Yeah,
she goes in and checks.
Because up until that moment where he just beats one swing of the hammer to Kirk's head, it's nothing had really happened up to that point. I mean, the hitchhiker cut his hand.
Just creepy stuff, really.
Yeah, and you're like, where is this movie going and what's going on? Because you have to remember, nobody knew. Like, we now know who Leatherface is, so we're expecting to see him. But at the time that people saw this movie, and something that was cool, and I think I forgot that I didn't love this movie as much. Like, this movie became like a background movie for me at some point in my life, so I kind of stopped paying attention to what was happening. But I think a lot of newer horror movies owe so much to this one.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
Absolutely.
the way that they film it to make it feel like you're watching something that's really real. And the way
it's like a docu-horror kind of thing.
It's kind of a documentary, and then they tell you, the opening of the movie, which has become iconic, is saying, oh, they were on an idyllic drive, and this is what we now know to be one of the most gruesome crimes in the annals of American history.
Yeah.
And I think movies like Blair Witch, while Blair Witch, they wanted you to think the footage was real, I think those kind of movies wouldn't exist without this.
And for the record, the narrator in the beginning of this movie, from what I read online, he agreed to do it for just one joint, not money, for a joint of marijuana.
It was 1974.
It was the 1970s, man. And that's why this movie's kind of psychological. There's, for a movie called Texas Chainsaw Massacre, there's only one person who dies by a chainsaw, and it's not. I mean, I guess there's a massacre because when the girl, Kirk's girlfriend, I guess, what's her name? Pam. When she walks in the house, you see all those bones. You don't know if they're human bones. You can tell some are animal bones, feathers, all this. He's either like. Well, we know he's probably robbing the graves, which they talk about in the beginning. Leatherface, I'm saying. But there's a lot of macabre more than there's gore.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what's really cool. And, that's what makes it really effed up.
I think it's really unsettling more than
it's
scary.
Extremely unsettling,
the entire movie, I think, there's an air about it that you're kind of like, I don't know where this is going to go next.
Mm-hmm.
And I liked that it wasn't just a gore fest. I mean, I love gory horror movies as much as the next person. But I really think there's such an appreciation for this movie because of how effective it is without, hack and slash the entire time.
I mean, this was such a low-budget movie. They actually, they filmed this over the course of 4 weeks, 16 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I was reading that there was a lot of, there was a big heat wave in Texas when they were filming it. And everybody was getting aggravated. They wanted to get the scenes done, and there was a lot of agitation.
Well, you could see they're just sweating bullets the entirety
the
of
whole
the movie.
And, well, I'll get to it in a second, but the one scene that I think you said you didn't like so much, which I loved, is the dinner scene.
I hate the dinner.
Which the remake doesn't have.
Yeah.
But the dinner scene it's so iconic and so it's been tried to be recreated in other movies, like that kind of concept of being she's held against her will, sitting at a dinner table with a bunch of psychopaths, and I love that. I
thought in concept I liked it, and I like it for a couple minutes, but it just felt like it went on forever.
It does go on a long time.
I'm not disputing that it's iconic.
There's the zooming in on the eye, back,
it's iconic for sure. But it just, what I thought was a couple minutes on rewatching this movie and actually taking notes on it.
About 6 or 7.
It was forever. I didn't count, but it felt like it was. It felt like more than 10 minutes. But I also like how Sally is kind of just using her environment to her advantage. Mm-hmm. I feel like sometimes in horror movies, I mean, when we talk about the remake, the final girl character is also fairly, she is fairly smart in getting out of these situations, but Sally jumps out of 2 windows, no problem.
No problem.
She's just I am busting through.
So many people in horror movies, I say, just jump out the window, and she
does.
And
twice. She does it twice.
Yeah.
It didn't, I think this movie, while she's a final girl, and it is a horror movie, so people have to do stupid things, she didn't feel stupid. She felt she was actually doing things that make sense in order to get out of this situation. I talked about this with Keith before we started this movie. Other than just getting completely disarmed by a broom.
Oh, yeah.
Not even the broom handle. He whacked a knife out of her hands with the front end of a broom.
And then beats her with that broom.
And beat her.
This is right before the dinner scene.
Yeah.
And then that's when she gets strapped in. But I don't know. I guess they didn't want to beat her. This is just my take. Maybe they want to beat her too bad so she's not a bloody pulp at the dinner table, and they wanted just to kind of soften her a little bit.
How do you drop a knife from a broom? Not even if I got hit with the broomstick, you could understand it because at least that's hard. The front of a broom.
I think she was a little distraught.
Yeah. I mean, maybe.
Poor girl.
Yeah.
Was that? I'm trying to remember. Was that? That was right after her brother Franklin got killed. So maybe she's all... Which, by the way, Franklin is the guy who gets killed with the chainsaw.
The only one in the movie.
And you don't see anything except, a hand go up, a chainsaw go up, and this, and then...
What I will say, as we were talking about before, that we can both appreciate the lack of hack and slash, but there were a lot of times in this movie where it felt like they needed to add blood, where I don't think it was intentional, and maybe it was low budget, I'm not sure, but... You could feel that they weren't trying to make it, because it's scary, just the environment of it's scary.
Yeah,
just the character of Leatherface is scary. But the girl, Pam, the one who ends up on the meat hook in the house, you don't see the hook, which you could understand, it's low budget, it's 1970, but there's no blood coming out of it. She is clutching her shoulder, there's no blood on her hands. There's no blood dripping down from her.
Yeah.
It's just, it was, I don't know if it was lazy or they just didn't have the resources, but even when she jumps out the window,
resources, yeah.
Her clothes are, like, ripped to shreds, and there's no blood anywhere on her clothes. And you know she had to have gotten
God, you would have sliced yourself right up, yeah. Well, going back to that dinner scene, which, like you were saying, drags on, too, one of the things that I love, and this actually, I was reading, had to go with, like, the agitation of the heat wave and whatnot, is they have to feed the grandpa, and they cut her finger and stick it in the grandpa's mouth. Now, I read that they had like a little blood pump behind the finger and they were going to try to do this fake cut. And what happened was they got so aggravated, they just cut her actual finger.
They had enough.
And just made a real cut in her finger.
But I think we have to talk about, before we move on to the 2003, I think we have to talk about the elephant in the room, Franklin.
Oh, God, I hate Franklin.
How annoying is Franklin?
Jerry!
Oh, God. I mean...
He complained about every damn thing in that movie.
Everything he could complain about, he complained about.
I hated that part. When he starts doing that.
That was weird to me, and it was weird that he was, like, spitting that way, but I don't know if it was intentional, and I didn't have time to look this up. But oddly, the hitchhiker, when they bust him out of the car, does something almost exactly that. Like, he starts spitting into the air. I'm not sure, and if it was intentional, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But my God, Franklin was so obnoxious. He takes you, a lot of the scenes where you're, like, getting into them, he takes me right out of it.
Oh my God. I hate to say it, but I loved when he died.
It was the best part of the movie.
I was like, oh, thank God we got rid of this guy.
His voice was annoying.
Yeah,
everything about him was annoying. Like, everything about him was annoying, and there were so many inconsistencies surrounding his character, right? So he's wheelchair bound, and once they get to this old creepy house that I guess is part of their family,
we don't know what the hell it is. Yeah, some watering hole that he's
they
just swimming.
He tells them, oh, there's a watering hole somewhere. You just gotta go this pathway between these two barns, and they get there. There's no water, which could make
dried
sense
up, right?
If there was a heat wave. But then the one character says, oh, how Franklin could have never gotten down here. Somebody would have had to carry him. So they establish that he's been wheelchair bound the majority of his life. And then there's a scene where they're all kind of in this house, and it starts to get dark, and he's trying to wheel himself
can't
up
navigate
like
anything.
the most baby slope that I've ever seen,
Yeah.
and somehow he can't make it up. It's like, oh, this guy's been wheelchair bound his whole
I think he's
life.
just supposed to be such an aggravating character.
Yeah.
I mean, like, it's almost like he's supposed to just be such a burden in this movie.
But he wasn't a burden to any of them.
He's a pain in the ass in the woods, though, right before he gets killed.
He was annoying, but he'd never... You would have thought that he would have held people back, almost, but he didn't. Like, the other...
That's true, he didn't really hold too much back.
The other characters, Pam and Kirk, were dead by the time things really started to happen. Jerry just ends up at the house and gets killed on his own. And then Sally's trying to get him out of this situation.
Jerry had the keys to the truck, that son of a gun.
Jerry had the keys, that son of... But... Yeah, I think Franklin, while I'm sure he was supposed to be annoying, I think it went a little past annoying into distracting.
Maybe the actor just sucked.
Maybe. I mean, they were all kind of no-names at that time, so it wouldn't surprise me.
Well, I'll tell you, one of my favorite parts about this whole movie, right after that dinner scene, she busts out the window. The hitchhiker is chasing her in the slowest run in the world, by the way, this hitchhiker. I think
he catches up to her and then he's like, oh, caught up to her. I better go back.
I think it almost like he's just trying to intimidate her, maybe.
Yeah.
That's maybe, but then he gets so...
But he's cutting...
Yeah, it's like he's trying not to catch up with her so he can intimidate her, but then he gets hit by that semi.
Yeah.
And, alright, my favorite part of this whole thing, first of all, the guy in the semi-truck who hits, they're like you said, you hated how, like, they walked through the truck instead of driving away. But he just books it.
Well, he books it to nowhere.
He says... F this, I'm getting out. There's a guy with a chainsaw running after me. I'm not part of this.
You can appreciate that he books it, right? But, like, where does he go? Because she gets picked, she just hops into the back of this guy's pickup truck, and this guy's probably like, what the hell's going on? She hops into this pickup truck, and this truck driver is still running.
I don't blame him.
The opposite direction. But where's he going?
I'd go anywhere but there. Now, my favorite part about that whole scene is that's like... This whole movie is such a big build-up. And you get right to this huge chase scene, and he's chasing her with a chainsaw. She jumps on the back of the pickup truck, and then he starts doing this wicked chainsaw dance at the end, and then the movie cuts and it's done.
Yeah.
Like, once the movie climaxes, it's over. There's no decline, nothing. It just ends. I love that.
And that scene, I mean, beyond being redone, the similar, what you called it, a dance, which it really felt like it was. That was obviously done again in the 2003, but it's been mimicked in a lot of other movies.
Yeah, a lot of pop culture stuff does that.
And if anybody's... I'm a big fan of the Strangers franchise. Maybe we'll review that another time. But at the end of The Strangers, the second movie, one of the Strangers killers, I'm not going to say which one to spoil it for everybody right now, but she hops into the back of a pickup truck, and he's chasing the
Is it the
pickup
second
truck.
one?
Yeah,
Oh, I haven't seen the second one yet.
Yeah, so it's so iconic that it's not always imitated with this dance, but it always, anytime you see somebody hopping into the back of a truck after a chase, you're like, Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
And I love that dance he does, that ripping loud chainsaw. Like, it's so creepy.
Yeah, it's
so
creepy,
cool.
And the whole movie, which we can move to the 2003 one because I think this is a good jumping off point.
Yeah.
I think the two actors that played, obviously Gunnar Hansen and then Andrew Bernie Arsky in the 2003, they both have a childlike feel about them.
Yeah, they do.
But the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, he felt a lot more like a child and a lot less resourceful. He could catch up to people, but he wasn't as, cunning as it felt like in the new one.
Yeah.
And the dance, I think the new movie, he was a lot more intimidating, and maybe that's just the size of him.
Well, actually, so I have it right here. So, in the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which you said Gunnar Hansen was it? He was 6'4" with 3-inch heels, which puts him at 6'7". In the remake, I don't know what size heel he was wearing, but the actor is 6'5", and actually put on weight of eating brisket and bread to gain up to almost 300 pounds for that role, which is huge. 6'5" and 300 pounds, and then you put all this crap on him in heels. Yeah. He probably was, he was definitely bigger.
And he felt huge.
Yeah, he just felt huge.
You're watching the movie and you're like, man, that guy is intimidating.
I wonder if he felt more intimidating too, because the mask style in the movies is
totally different.
It's definitely scarier in the
the original mask. He put a face of makeup on. But in the new movie, it felt like more a leather put together mask.
Kind of reminded me of like a leather baseball glove, as opposed to the original one kind of being a little more organic, I think.
Yeah, and then at some point he takes the face off of Erin, who's Jessica Biel's character's boyfriend, and dons that mask for a short portion of the movie.
Yep.
But I think
let's go right into it.
Start from the top. So obviously the 2003 version of this movie is a lot closer of a remake than the Jordana Brewster one. And before we get into the actual movie itself, something I thought I pointed out when I was watching the original, and they changed it for the 2003, is oddly enough, in their very first Texas Chainsaw Massacre, 1974, when you see the title card, it's the Texas Chain Space Saw Massacre. So 2 words for chainsaw. Obviously, the new one, it's now the Texas Chainsaw Massacre as just 1 word, which I'm not sure why it was 2 words in the original. But
I don't know. And in the 70s, maybe they spelled stuff different.
Maybe chainsaw was spelled different. But I noticed that immediately. So the movies both start super similar.
Mm-hmm. The narration.
Not as long.
Same narrator, by the way. Same guy reprised his role for that.
But not as long, which didn't bother me.
Yeah, it's fine.
It was similar enough. And then in this movie, the cast of characters actually has a destination that they're
Leonard
headed to.
Skinner, baby.
Leonard Skinner. They have front row seats, which I appreciated that they had a destination, and I'm sure that was intentional because they had, God knows where they were going in the first, just off on a drive, just a Saturday, God knows what day it was, Saturday drive. And then, like the original, they come across a hitchhiker.
But again, which I love, is they come across a hitchhiker, but there's a whole different reasoning for it.
Yeah.
In the original one, the hitchhiker was part of the family with Leatherface. In this one, she's some girl who was clearly a previous victim of, which in this movie now the Leatherface family is dubbed the Hewitt family. So she's a previous victim of the Hewitt family, which you kind of gather, you eventually find this out later in the movie. Yeah,
and then they pick her up, and different than the original, she ends up killing herself.
And where'd she pull the gun from?
Not sure. Unclear.
Yeah. I mean, it looks like she's pulling it between her legs, but I mean, come on.
Yeah, I don't know where the gun was, but I don't know that it matters.
No, it doesn't matter. I just remember the first time I saw it in theaters, I was sitting with my friend Dave, who was to the right of me, and when she pulls that thing out, he's like his face just goes like, what the hell is going on here? And then when she pulls the trigger in her mouth, my friend just turned to me and said, I won't say the curse words, he says, I effing can't take this. Like immediately, he's like, this, I can't believe what's happening.
And in that moment, you immediately realize that this movie is taking a different direction stylistically.
Yeah,
than
stylistically,
the original, because that might have been less than 10 minutes into the movie.
Oh yeah,
they are full blown. We're gonna be
the movie starts.
Yeah, we're gonna be gory in this one, and you're gonna see almost everything that we're gonna do, which I like because it's the original. I like gore, but the original felt organic to not have it. I think in newer movies, you want to see it, I think. Personally, I want to see more gore, but I think there are...
I actually love that camera when they show behind the hole in her head, too.
Yeah, when they zoom through the hole in her head, I thought it was really
in prior
cool.
horror movies, you didn't really have, like, cool camera work like that. You didn't really like, and like if you saw gore and stuff like that, it was kind of corny. Like this one actually looked kind of cool.
Yeah, and then so obviously from there, they get to the Hewitt family again, different because this girl's killed. So I guess for those who haven't watched the Jordana Brewster movie, in that one you find out that this sheriff is actually not a sheriff.
Right.
He kills,
what's the actor's name who plays the sheriff?
I think it's Arlie Emery.
Yeah. The drill sergeant in Full Metal Jacket.
Yes. If any of you out there are, I guess not just film buffs, but Full Metal Jacket, he's in so many movies, but
he's the same character.
Most notably Full Metal Jacket. You find out in the first movie that he murders the sheriff and takes on his uniform. Which you
kind of assume he's not a real sheriff at some point in this.
Yeah, it becomes clear that he's not a sheriff, which the characters somehow don't realize or don't know what to do. Yeah. But it's pretty clear that he's not. He starts saran wrapping this dead body.
Oh my god! And then cops a feel on it,
then cops a feel.
Oh my god, that's so creepy when he's talking about and how he used to always love wrapping bodies. Maybe I don't know. Maybe he was trying to allude to something that he was a psychopath. And killing people.
And then we can move to something that's consistent again across both movies and talk about which one we thought was more effective and which one we thought was less effective. The slamming of the door with the hammer again. Slightly different in the 2003 because the door, as I pointed out to Keith, is set back a little bit further into the home than the original. And
it's a much heavier iron door.
It's a heavier door. Remake. It's a bigger door, too. A much bigger door.
It's huge. Yeah, and I guess it leads down to his basement.
Yeah. And instead of the immediate whack while standing in the frame of the door, it's a whack further into the house and then a drag into it.
Which I think it's... I think we were kind of saying it best. Like, it was definitely like more intimidating in this one. Like it was pretty vicious. Like he whacks the guy with a sledgehammer in the remake, drags him, slams that really loud door. But I said I liked the remake one better until I rewatched it again when I was watching some scenes of the original. The original one is better.
I think the original's better.
And the music that plays after he slams the door, like it's creepy.
And it's more shocking because obviously in a modern horror movie, and especially the way they start the movie with the gunshot right through the mouth.
Yeah, they set a tone.
You have a feeling that something's going to happen, and it's going to happen at a quick breakneck pace. Yep. Whereas in the original, up until that moment, nothing really happened that was overtly scary.
Yeah,
up to that point.
Like grave robbing, some weird people, a dead armadillo, that's it.
And I like the original more because I liked that he was actually in the frame of the door, and you just see this character that's like nothing you've ever seen, and just a quick one shot, and the character starts like writhing and shaking on the ground from it, and then it's just a quick slam of the door. Yeah,
and like you really don't know where he is because like in the remake, I assume a lot of people had seen the original, so you kind of know like okay, something's beyond that door. It's probably his weird little taxidermy factory thing going on. But like in the original one, you're like, the hell was that?
Yeah, And then he disappears for a pretty not lengthy, but until you see Pam again, you don't see Leatherface really again.
Yeah, no, it's true.
And you don't even see him a lot in that first movie, whereas he was more of. In the 2003 version, he was more of an active character, I felt. I felt like I saw him a lot more. And another thing that is different between the two movies, he uses the chainsaw a lot more.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, like, they really got that thing sounding freaking ripping loud, man.
Yeah, and he utilizes it a lot more to kill the characters and to maim some of them. Whereas in the original, the only time you see the chainsaw is when he kills Franklin, and then until he's chasing Sally through the woods, and
he's using the chainsaw in the original. I can't remember when the girl's on the meat hook. He's using the chainsaw to cut something, right?
I think so.
Right, I think he is.
But he doesn't yield it quite as much.
Yeah, for a movie called The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, it should have been called like the Sledgehammer Massacre. I think there's more hammers that people got assaulted by than chainsaws in that movie.
And I like the remake. I think Jessica Biel's excellent. Which
oh my god! And of course they have to do a scene where they pan behind her rear end, and I'm okay with it.
I think she's really good in this movie, and she's not in a lot of genre film. I mean, she was in The Sinner, which is a horror adjacent, more of drama, and she was in The Tall Man, which was a horror movie too. But this
Summer Catch, one of the best movies.
Summer Catch. But up until this movie, I think she was in a lot different types of roles, and I really liked her in this one. And then I think obviously the acting in this movie is far superior to the original, which I don't think is a bad thing for the 1974 version of the movie. I agree. I just think the acting in this one's better, and
I don't think they were really even bad in the 70s one. It was just there wasn't enough like oomph behind it. Actually, believe it or not, I feel like the original one. They probably acted almost like realistically.
Yeah, the hitchhiker. I mean, this hitchhiker in the new movie had a very like a footnote of a part, But in the original one, the hitchhiker I found to be a little distracting.
Yeah, he was.
He was too over the top.
Yeah.
And I think he's supposed to be, and I'm someone who's sensitive to overacting, and so maybe I'm just hypersensitive to that.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, it was. I guess I didn't really mind it much, but it was definitely.
And then in the remake, as Keith alluded to earlier, they omit the dinner scene. Which didn't bother me.
I am happy though they did keep putting the guy on the meat hook though.
Yes.
After Leatherface chases the
Pam.
blonde hair. What's his name?
Well, Pam is
in the new one.
Oh, Aaron.
When he chases Aaron through the laundry.
Aaron is Jessica Biel. He's talking about the blonde guy who.
Yeah, who gets his leg cut off.
Pepper's
Andy.
boyfriend?
Andy. When he's chasing Andy through the laundry and then somehow gets in front of him and slices the leg off.
Yeah, unclear how he got in front of him because it was pretty obvious that Andy was in front of him.
Yeah.
But then, in a moment's notice, he's off to the side.
With a silent chainsaw.
Because you stop hearing the chainsaw.
Yeah.
But I don't know why he chose to run through the laundry anyway.
Yeah, I mean, that was a silly move, but I really don't know how, like, every single person in this movie seems pretty fit. Like, they got pretty good stamina, they're all in shape, but they can't outrun a 300-pound guy holding a chainsaw. I'm sorry. This guy seems like a brute, but there's no way you can't. A child could outrun this guy.
And then, another thing we talk about, which we've already...
Oh, and then he gets put on the meat hook. That's right.
He gets put on the meat hook. We've discussed our disdain for Franklin. And the one character, Morgan, in this movie...
Who's sort of like the Franklin. Yeah.
Becomes like a surrogate Franklin. He's not in a wheelchair, but you don't see it happen, but we assume he was placed on one of the meat hooks because he has like a wound to his back. You never actually see him end up on it.
Yeah.
But then Aaron is trying to save him, and I'm not disputing that he was like injured. But he just felt so helpless where if I'm her, I'm like, either you get up or I'm leaving you.
Yeah, and it did seem like a little bit of a parallel with Franklin in that sense that, you know, she had to drag this person. Pam had to push Franklin through the woods, so it did kind of seem like that. So, I mean, I thought that was... I don't know if it's paying homage or if it's just kind of keeping it close but changing a little bit.
Yeah, but he felt like a surrogate Franklin.
And I'll tell you, though, I liked him so much better. The scene before that, when he gets arrested by the sheriff... When he's making him reenact, when he's making the sheriff's making Morgan reenact what the hitchhiker did by pretending to put the gun in his mouth and all that kind of stuff. And he pulls the gun on the sheriff and like, yeah, Morgan. And then, of course, it's not loaded.
Of course.
Yeah.
It can't be.
And
it couldn't be. That would be too easy.
Yep. And the sheriff's like, we got a killer on our hands.
Yeah. And I liked that scene, and I think Jonathan Tucker, who plays Morgan, I thought was really good throughout this movie. I mean, some of the other actors kind of didn't have as much to do as he did because they got dispatched of shorter and didn't have as much scene time, but if you're fans of him in
the
this...
character Pepper. Like, who is she and why the hell is her name Pepper?
Well, they picked her up.
Oh, that's right, yeah, she's just some...
She was the first of two hitchhikers.
Yeah,
that's true.
She was a hitchhiker as well.
So I guess it kind of showed, like, hey, these people pick up hitchhikers.
Yeah, well, they definitely picked her up. I liked her character, but the way that they got rid of her, I didn't like. Just... They end up in the van, and for some odd reason, they're not opening the door because he's on the roof, and they can hear him on the roof.
Cars can't start, tires fall off cars. My God.
Can we talk about the tires falling off the car?
What the hell happened there?
When did the nuts get taken off the tires?
Yeah, like, who sabotaged... I mean, you just assume one of the Hewitts sabotaged it.
But how? Because...
Then the car also wouldn't start, which, I mean, like, it's such a movie trope, and, like, we make fun of it now, but even in 2004, weren't we making fun of that kind of stuff? Like, yeah, the car won't start, of course.
Yeah, well, and when I'm still... It still irritates me that... Because you're just seeing them drive away, like, oh, they have a shot. And then the tires just fall off. Yeah. And you're like, well, what...
Like, not just one, like,
every
multiple tires fall off.
Every tire just comes off to the side.
And I feel like they only got like 3 feet.
Not even. I think they rolled once.
and it's like, when did the tires get taken off? Because there was not a moment where one of the characters wasn't at the car.
Yeah.
And if there was, it was when they were all like, oh, let's go find Kemper. Yeah. And then Morgan and Pepper were like, nah, we're not doing that. We're going to go sit at the van.
Yep. I guess they kind of had a parallel how, like, their car, I guess, was out of gas in the original, so this one, their car wasn't working. Something had to not work on this car to parallel to the original.
But the dispatching of Pepper by just, they're chilling out in the van. He's on the roof. They decide not to run out the side.
In my notes, I literally I wrote the word out, F Pepper. I didn't really care about her.
I just thought there was so much else they could have done. And the way they kill her, right? So they get out of the van... She's running, trips over a couple barrels for no reason.
Yeah, I mean...
And then Leatherface just gets her... You see him swipe the chainsaw, and then the feathers from her jacket, like, fly up in the air, which was cool.
And then the slow motion turnaround with the face of...
Yeah.
What's his name?
Of Kemper.
Of Kemper's... Yeah, when he cut off Kemper's face and put on his mask.
Yeah.
And that... I remember seeing that in theaters, and I was like... Damn. I was like, this guy's no joke.
I thought that was cool. And I liked the chase scenes in this movie better than the original.
A lot more going on in them.
Yeah,
You know,
and they weren't as long. I felt like the original...
Oh, they weren't as long. The meat house at the end. Oh.
Yeah, but the movie... I think you're right, though. I think you make a good point. The last 20 to 30 minutes of the movie really become a chase movie because she's just running into different locations and just trying to get out of there. But I liked the slaughterhouse.
They skipped the dinner scene. They skipped the dinner.
It doesn't bother me.
It bothers me so much. It's so iconic. So iconic. I mean, like, that's like what I think about when I think of the Texas Chainsaw movie. I think of that dinner scene. I think of the sledgehammer slamming the door. And I think of, you know, a chainsaw. Like, those are like the three things I think of.
See, I only think about the chainsaw dance at the end.
Oh, yeah, the chainsaw dance at the end.
The dinner scene didn't bother me. I think it could have
But they didn't even have anything similar to it.
No, but again, I don't care.
Maybe when Jessica Biel was, like, sitting in the house with them, and then Leatherface takes her down to the basement.
But the movie would have had to change so much. Like, you don't like the slaughterhouse, but in order for them to execute that dinner scene and make it similar enough to the original, they would have had to capture her at some point, which he didn't really. Like, he threw her down into the basement.
In this, well, no, they captured. Remember, she got drugged.
Yeah, but then
they could have done the dinner scene right after the drugging.
But that's when he threw her in the basement.
Yeah, but they could have.
And then he's just like, I'll deal with her later.
I'm telling you, the only reason they did the whole basement thing was just to justify Morgan and the other blonde guy who got his leg cut off. Whatever.
Yeah.
That's how important that character was to me.
Yeah. But I liked the slaughterhouse. I thought it was cool. I think at the time I thought it was really cool when I first saw it.
I'll admit, the first time I saw it, I thought that scene was cool when she's hiding behind the cows.
It really shows how big Leatherface, because he's taller than the lockers.
Oh yeah, he's tall in that scene.
Yeah, I liked the lockers. I think you make a good point that the movie turned into a chase movie.
Mm-hmm.
But I liked the lockers. I liked when she was kind of stuck between the frozen meat. I liked that she lured him into the one locker with the pig. I thought it was all really good. I liked all that.
Yeah, I mean, I like that. And then she had the strength of 10 men by cutting off the arm with a...
Before we got to that scene, Keith was like, because she picked up the cleaver, and immediately he was offended. He's like, she's just going to hack his arm off in so easily. It took her like 5 or 6 swipes. It didn't bother me.
I couldn't cut a chicken
that
fast
fast. I
with a
think
meat
you thought
cleaver.
It was going to be less.
I in my mind, it was like two little hacks, but... Even still, I mean, my God. I mean, this guy's arm is bigger than an elephant's trunk, and she cut that thing off with...
It was a sharp cleaver.
I can't imagine. With the way this Hewitt family lives, everything looks dull, rusty, and, like, I swear to God, they're all getting tetanus and dysentery in that basement.
But now because he cut off Andy's leg with just the most basic of swipes of the chainsaw.
Maybe he
like
sharpens
the clean,
that
and not only that, it was a clean swipe.
Oh
it wasn't jagged, not even the slightest. It was just like he took...
It's like a guillotine.
Yeah, like he took a guillotine, or if you really had like a taut fish wire, and he just like sliced it right off.
By the way, I'm actually surprised you didn't notice and mention it, because you always catch these things. When there's the one scene where they're showing him in the basement and his legs cut off, you can just see these 2 little blood pumps.
Oh yeah,
going like that, and I'm just like, oh, that's just so tacky.
Yeah, and then she gets covered in his blood when she...
Oh, the mercy kill.
She mercy kills him with just a single stab wound, and he dies in less than 5 seconds.
Yeah, honest to God, I mean, go for the throat or something. I mean, that stabbing someone in the stomach...
It's going to take him longer to die than that, than if you just slit my throat.
In the movie, they gave us, just... thank God they just showed him just die.
Yeah.
They gave us a little satisfaction there.
But I liked that scene, though, when she's trying to get him off the meat hook, and he's like, I've had enough.
God, that scene, I fast forward it when I watch it by myself. I can't watch that scene anymore.
No, I thought it was good. And even though this one was a lot gorier than the original one, in today's standards, I mean, at the time, like, Hostel wasn't that far after this movie. Yeah. It's not the goriest thing you've ever seen, but if you were expecting...
With this one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you were expecting the original with almost nothing, you'd be
this is like tenfold,
Yeah.
But... I mean, I actually like that, I think this is like my perfect amount of gore. I'm not a big gore guy. I like that they showed enough blood, but they didn't go over the top and they didn't undersell it either.
Yeah, I like gore. I mean, the gorier the better for me sometimes. I mean, I do like movies.
I find gore too tacky. I just don't need it.
I don't know, I like it. And there are movies that I like where I think it can be really effective to allude to something happening, but you don't actually see it.
Yeah.
I think it could be done well, but I also think, as we've talked about, a movie called The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I want to see a massacre.
Yeah, I know. That title really... I mean, for the original one, people who expected that title to show you something, you didn't really get what you were looking for there.
No. And another difference between the two of them, whereas the original, as Keith said, termed it more of like a documentary, this one didn't feel quite like that.
Yeah, it only seemed like it was trying to be like like there's a movie and a documentary is around the movie. Like in the beginning and the end, they show like what makes you think like this is like a real event, and they were just showing like a dramatization of it.
I'm glad you brought that up because I loved the ending where they have the cops like walking into the basement of the house.
I like that.
I thought that was really cool, and I love the still shot of him just looking like a complete and total maniac.
Yeah,
I thought that was really cool.
Yeah,
it was a cool way to end it because, as we've said,
because they didn't end it with a chainsaw dance. They did not end it with that.
No. Ugh. And his dance was a lot. I don't think it was as good of a dance.
This is more like he just kind of swung it and then just kind of like almost stood there, and then like they zoom in on his face and like the heavy breathe.
And how do you feel about not having just a really dramatic like semi-truck murder?
Well,
they replaced it with her running over.
Yeah, the sheriff 3 times. Forward, back, forward.
Listen, like Zombieland, she did a double tap, but like an extra tap. She had to add the extra tap.
But you know that extra tap, that third one, what if it popped a tire? Then she was really screwed.
I mean, yeah.
I mean, like I wouldn't have tempted it that much. I probably would just hit him and then just gone.
And something that they put into the movie that I didn't care about, nor did I think was necessary. So we've talked about the female hitchhiker that kills herself in the beginning of the movie. When Erin is kind of on this chase, she ends up with these 2 people in a trailer. And you see a picture of this hitchhiker with a child, and you're like, oh, okay, who cares? Yeah. And then at the end of the movie, Erin, after she kills the sheriff, they kind of zoom into her face, and they zoom to the side of her, and you see this, I'm guessing, is the hitchhiker's child. I didn't need that.
Yeah, I mean,
so
like,
unnecessary.
That was like a plot like nobody cared about.
It was a plot that no one cared about, nor did the movie care about.
No, the movie didn't even care about
because they just showed it in pictures, and they showed it like, oh, cool, this hitchhiker had a child. Cool.
Yeah, it was like they started the movie with that, and then they was like, oh, you know what, we can't resolve it without saving the baby, because we totally forgot they had, like, it's almost like they said, fine, just have her save the baby real quick.
But even if they did, like, I just felt, it felt so unnecessary. It just felt like, why
I want all the children to be safe, but just don't even include the child.
But I didn't even, like, they just showed her, I guess, a picture of her with a child. You could have been like, oh, she just was out here on her own. And I've been like, okay, cool.
That's true.
The kid's safe somewhere.
Yeah, how do we know?
There was no moment in the movie where we're like, oh, she's got to save some kid.
Yeah.
I almost wonder if it's like, well, at least when what made me think is like that all the kids are not actually blood Hewitts, that they were all stolen from previous hitchhikers.
Maybe.
That is interesting.
Like, that's what I thought.
Well, you know what?
And I think, like, that's why
you just opened up a can of worms here.
Yeah.
That's why I thought that they showed it. I mean, that was just my opinion, though.
I just didn't care.
Yeah.
It just felt, I was, like, you're seeing Erin, you're like, oh, she's triumphing, and then they zoom over to her kid, you're like, huh, okay, she saved the kid. Cool.
Yeah.
I totally agree. It was weird. I didn't care for it. But another thing we could mention quickly, because this is a remake of a movie, the guy who directed this movie, Marcus Knispel, I'm a fan of this movie. I don't think Keith is as much of a fan.
Which one?
He was also the director of the Friday the 13th
Oh, no, I like that.
Oh, you do like that?
I certainly like that,
okay.
Yeah.
I'm a big
I
fan
just don't like that it was standalone and there weren't any sequels. I wanted them to do more with it, but no, that movie was, I thought that was a great remake.
Yeah,
though.
so I guess he's
Which that will be another episode.
That will be, if anybody's interested. Just shows he's good at making remakes. I like his work. I think it's gory. I mean, the remake of Friday the 13th is like, if this movie is gory, that movie is like up here.
Yeah.
But I think he was effective in this one. And if I had to pick one, I think you have to go with the original of Texas Chainsaw.
Of which one's better?
Yeah.
Original. Yeah. I mean, we can rate the movies too if you want. I mean.
Yeah, we could do that.
Yeah.
So what do you think? Out of 10, original.
I mean, Texas Chainsaw, like, I honestly put that high up, the original one. I'd give it like a 9.5.
I wouldn't go quite that high.
Yeah.
I'm definitely like a 7.
Yeah, well, I mean, which is solid. I mean, like, we have totally different, standards of that. I give it a 9.5. It's just one of my favorite. And it's honestly one of the first ones I saw as a kid. I saw this one at a young age. I was in single digits when I first saw this, and it just kind of stuck with me.
I think I'm giving it a 7 as a movie, but in terms of its influence on the genre moving forward, it's just... I don't think... there's so many movies that wouldn't exist if not for this
Absolutely.
one. And there's so many things that are done in this movie that have been mimicked as time goes on. I mean, it was... People liked this movie enough and the character of Leatherface enough that we've gotten, I think, 4 or 5, 6 remakes. I don't know where we're at right now. But it's a great character. It's a really interesting movie. I think it's really cool that they want you to feel like what you're watching is actually kind of happening, or that it was a real event. I think it's an invaluable piece of the genre, but just a movie on its own, there's a couple things, as I've talked about, that I didn't love. but I really like the original.
Yeah, and for the remake, I'd probably give it a solid 8. I mean, I thought it's a great movie. Well, I shouldn't say great. I thought it was a very, very, very good movie. I think it was just a little bit below great. I love the remake, though.
I'd probably give it like a 5 or a 6.
That's a failing score, if you ask me.
It's not a fail.
My goodness.
I like it a lot, but upon rewatching it, I think it's a really fun movie to watch with a group of people. But in terms of like a horror movie that I really would watch again, it's not.
For the record, I want to point out that the remake of Texas Chainsaw was my first date movie.
Wow.
That was my first date movie.
I
made my wife watch it too. Don't worry.
I was way too young to see this when it first came out.
Were you?
Yeah, I was 10.
Yeah, I was in middle school. I remember watching that I think it was one of the dances or something.
I don't remember when I saw this one, but
Oh, here, real quick, and we're gonna do a quiz just for each one. We're gonna do body count. How many deaths, on-screen deaths, do you think there were in the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre?
Well, on screen that you actually see people.
That you actually see, yeah. Because I'm not talking about all the dead bodies and corpses we can presume.
I mean, you see Franklin.
Right. Can I just give me a number?
I don't know. 4, 5.
5. You got it. 5.
Yeah, 5.
Okay. In the remake, what's the body count?
It's probably similar. 6.
8.
8. Okay.
Yeah, 3 more. I mean, I'm trying to think with 8. I guess go with the hitchhiker.
Well, the hitchhiker you add, and then the sheriff would be another one.
Yeah, that's true. He did get killed. I mean, there were quite
because that's not Leatherface. So
that's just a death. We're just counting deaths.
You're counting full movie, not just the killer killing.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, full movie. Yeah, body count. Yeah, not talking about I don't know how many of the victims were specifically Leatherface, but yeah,
gotcha.
Body count. I mean, we could probably analyze that, but that's for another video.
Yeah.
But
and then I think the body count's interesting, but again, we've talked about the original movie. I think the only 2 deaths you actually see happen is Franklin and the hitchhiker, because everybody else, you don't Pam just ends up back in the fridge.
Yeah, it's presumed death.
Yeah.
Well, he gets hit with a sledgehammer.
Yeah, but you don't know that he's dead at that moment.
Well, you kind of do, because you remember when Franklin was talking, he was saying how they would hit the cow with the sledgehammer and then it would twitch and then it'd kill it. So you kind of assume based on that. Yeah.
But I think both movies are super effective.
Who's the other one?
I don't know. What are you talking about?
I'm trying. Who the other death was that you don't see?
Pam is on the meat hook and then he just throws her back in the fridge.
Pam Kirk, hitchhiker.
Sally doesn't die.
Oh my goodness! Oh, Franklin died.
Jerry is Jerry gets hit with the hammer.
Yeah.
And then Kirk is the one who is the boyfriend of Pam.
Oh yeah. Okay, yeah. Sorry.
Keith had
distracted.
A little bit of a brain fart.
Distracted. Again, she just recently watched this one. I was going through it again today. I had recently watched it, but last month. So.
Yeah. But what's your recommendation for the week?
Recommendation for the week. Does it have to be movies?
No.
Well, I can tell you all one thing right now, and this is a horror thing. So, one of my favorite video games is Resident Evil 4. Resident Evil 4 is awesome. Never even needs a remake, it's that good. However, they did what's called a demake. So, Resident Evil 4 came out for PlayStation 2 and GameCube, and the original Resident Evil game came out for PlayStation 1. They took Resident Evil 4 and demade it back into Resident Evil 1 graphics, Resident Evil 1 sound effects, Resident Evil 1 fixed cameras. If you are a video game fan or a Resident Evil fan, and I know in the first episode I talked about Resident Evil, I love Resident Evil, you have to at least just see it. I think it's available on Steam. It looks so cool. I can't wait for that thing. That's not a movie, not a TV show, but also as another thing, the TV show Chucky. I recommend that one. It's stupid, it's corny,
yeah,
I love it.
I probably won't watch it if that's the
She'll
case.
never watch it.
I don't like
I
corny.
love it. Brad Dourif back as Chucky.
I love Brad
Not that
Dourif,
stupid Mark Hamill with that remake crap. That movie sucked. Don't ever watch the remake of Child's Play. Sucked. I'll totally compare that by myself in 2 minutes. It sucked.
We'll talk about Child's Play in another episode, but Child's Play in terms of horror franchises is probably, if Nightmare on Elm Street's not the bottom, Child's Play is right there for me. I just don't care for it.
I might never do a podcast with this woman again, based on what I just heard.
It's just so unbelievable to me that just this 2-foot tall doll, and yes, he does have human strength. I'm not saying that, but it just takes a quick, swift kick and he's out of there.
That's what I used to say.
Not if you don't expect the doll. Who assumes a possessed doll? What world do we live in?
Maybe in the first movie, but 2, 3 through whatever they're at now, they all know that he's a thing. And he's just he's cunning, yes, but just a swift kick and he's out of there.
And he is hilarious in the TV show.
He's hilarious.
I hate corny, but I'll watch it just because it's something new.
I think it's a good show. I think it's definitely more. Not childish, because it's not childish. It's definitely dumbed down from like gore and all that stuff. I mean, there's cursing on the TV show, but I think it's actually still good. It's sci-fi and USA.
I'm trying to think what my recommendation. I think because we've talked about a show, I'll give a documentary maybe.
Go for it.
I'm a big true crime person, not just a horror person. All things death, I love, but
all things death.
Yeah, because I love true crime. Just love it.
Because true crime's the best.
True crime is amazing. If you guys aren't into true crime, you're missing out. I mean, I can understand, like, if you live alone and you're scared, whatever, but true crime I love. This is what I'm recommending, because this is a little bit of an unknown, more of a crime. Everybody knows Jeffrey Dahmer. Everybody knows, Ted Bundy. Everybody knows Ed Gein. But this documentary on Peacock is about the Toolbox Killers.
Is this the one you were telling me about?
Yes.
This is effed up.
It's really... I'm not going to say... I can't say on this podcast, otherwise YouTube will not be pleased with us. But the things that these two guys... It's Lawrence Bittaker and Lee Norris. The things that these guys do are just wildly grotesque. And
it's absolutely horrific what they do.
Yeah.
Grotesque doesn't even describe it.
Yeah, wildly grotesque. It's really, like... Things don't ever have an effect on me, but what they did, if you read about what they did, is just... And if you listen, they interview FBI people that were investigating at the time, the district attorney who was involved in prosecuting them, and you can tell how much of an effect it had on them.
Yeah.
If you guys are true crime people, it's on Peacock. It's a documentary. I think it's just called The Toolbox Killers. It's about an hour and a half. It's super good.
From what you're telling me, too, it's one of those things, like you can't even fathom what these people did. Like it's actually like even the most psychopathic Ted Bundy type people, you say, I think even they would cringe at how bad this stuff is.
And I'm not saying this is like hyping it. It is this isn't me hyping it. This is legitimate.
Yeah, this is I don't get disturbed that easily. This is disturbing.
Yeah, it's almost like you couldn't even you can't make up this stuff.
Yeah,
no.
I wish it was all made up.
And you just can't fathom. It's just so hard to imagine what the women went through that they did this to. It's crazy and it's beyond comprehension, as we've said. But that's a true crime recommendation. Keith and I, in terms of trailers, what we've watched recently, there's a new Resident Evil trailer that we talked about the other day, and Keith sent to me. I'm not a huge fan of this director. If any of you have seen the movie Raw, it's a French film. I think it's on Netflix still right now.
I think it is still.
I saw that movie when it came out. It was another one of those movies that they're like, this is the scariest thing you've ever seen. And people were throwing up after the premiere, which I think it worked because I rented it. I didn't like it, but the director of Raw, which is a critically acclaimed film, and a lot of horror fans did enjoy it. She has a new movie called Titane.
Yeah.
Which I think it looks good, but I thought Raw looked good too, so I'm not sure.
We'll probably watch it and maybe do a review on that one, especially since it's new.
I think it's in French, because I know the other one was in French. I think this one.
I'm gonna take French classes. I'd rather not read a movie. I'd rather just sit. I would literally learn French 101 just to watch this movie.
It's not that hard to read it.
It's not.
You can do it.
I can do it.
I have faith in you.
I don't want to do it. I can do it. I saw Passion of the Christ. I can do it.
You've seen Inglourious Basterds.
I've seen Inglourious Basterds.
You can do it. You can do it.
Yeah.
So another thing...
I watch anime with the Japanese and the subtitles,
another thing that if anybody's interested in doing this, I think we'll premiere this next Wednesday if Keith wants to talk about... Ooh. We're going to start doing some... I mean, Keith has more ghost stories than I do. I have some creepy, weird, real-life stories, but Keith has had more experiences with the paranormal than I have. But I think, Keith, do you want to do a little intro of maybe what we'll premiere next week?
Yeah, I was thinking about maybe during the week, maybe on like a Wednesday... Probably, yeah. You know, I will definitely do it this Wednesday, so you have something to actually look forward to. A telling of a ghost story, maybe a quick 4 or 5 minute video, or however long it takes me to tell a story. I would also even be willing to tell local ghost stories of people I know, people who know me, and family, friends, people if they want to email me, anything. And I think it'll be kind of fun. And I'll tell it old campfire style with a flashlight under my chin if you really want me to, too.
I think lighting for that would be absolutely horrible.
Yeah,
it'll be horrible, but it's going to be fine. I'll add spooky sounds and everything, and I'll go, ooh, the whole time.
I'll just throw a soundtrack over you.
It won't be as long as these videos will be, but just a quick...
Yeah, maybe 5-10 minute video.
Yeah, just quick in the middle of the week. If any of you out there have a ghost story that you're burning for us to read, or we don't have to say your name if you don't want us to.
Yep.
Even if it's not a ghost story, I have more just weird real life things. If you have something scary that happened to you.
Yeah, just something scary. Yeah, like I don't want it to be a disturbing thing that bothers you,
No.
but, just something like, I have stories of sleep paralysis and things I've seen in my house and things my brothers have seen, so I want to tell more stories like that.
I think maybe if they want to send them in, you could do it through DM on Instagram, which I will put the Instagram handle on the screen or something. So
perfect.
Yeah, so that does it, I think, for our Texas Chainsaw Massacre comparison.
Yeah.
If any of you guys have feelings about this movie that you'd love to share with us, leave a comment down below this video. Make sure you subscribe. And, we've talked about movies that we might do in the future, but if there's something you haven't seen that you're like, wow, I'm not sure if I want to watch this, maybe we've seen it, or if there's something you really want to hear our opinions about, leave it down in the comments, and we'll hopefully do that soon. But I think over the next couple of weeks, it's going to be Resident Evil heavy.
Oh, yeah.
So if any Resident Evil fans out there, I don't know anything really about the video games. That's Keith's.
Don't you worry.
That's Keith.
I've even read the novelizations of the video games. Don't you worry.
That's Keith's.
What, 2 weeks till the movie?
Yeah, the movie is, what is it, the day after Thanksgiving?
Day before.
Day before Thanksgiving. So for those out there who are big Resident Evil fans, make sure you get your tickets. We certainly are.
Oh, yeah.
And that'll do it for today. Hope you guys enjoy the rest of your week.
And in my best Franklin voice, I'll say, Jerry!